Paula, why don't you go ahead and start recording? Remind everyone, make sure your microphones are turned green in front of you. If not,
Thank you.
all right, thank you, Paula, and welcome everyone. For those that are joining us online, this is the city of Cottonwood Heights. My name is Mike Peterson. I'm the mayor of the city, and this is our work session, Tuesday, June 15th. And it's been about a year and 4 months since we've been in this room, this session. So welcome back. And Riley's lost because he hasn't been here for a long time. So we'll begin by the review of our business meeting agenda. Hope everyone has that document in front of you to take a look at it. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we will have a proclamation, a Juneteenth proclamation, and we're going to ask Jerry or Jerry. Is it Jerry? How do you sound it? Jerry Harwell. On the agenda it says Hartwell, but it's Harwell. Yeah. And we'll ask her to introduce that proclamation and give us a little bit of history of maybe some Black pioneers in our community. And she's a former resident of our city and longtime member of our historic committee. And
on the community council.
yeah, that's right. She was on the council with us before that. Yeah, that's right. We'll welcome her to do that. That'll be it. I think all of you received previously a draft of that proclamation. Any questions on it? We had some good comments. I think it was improved as we move forward. Then we'll have citizen comments. Then we have 2 public hearings. And, the first public hearing will be regarding our proposed budget. The second one is regarding a proposed stormwater fee. We'll be discussing the stormwater fee and the budget here in a moment as part of our work session. Then we have 2 staff reports. It's a financial report first, which will talk about our tax rate. I guess we received that. So I don't know what that is. Then we'll have an interesting discussion about firework restriction areas. I know we had a long discussion this morning with UFA, and I passed on some communication from the UFA attorney, and Shane will have some comments. We'll be discussing that going forward as well. I think we won't have any of that discussion now. We're strictly in the, well, you're doing a presentation, and we'll have a discussion that. Yeah, okay. Then we have several action items. The first action item is the rezone of the 3rd acre lot on Fort Union, where we'll approve it or deny it. I think we talked about having some conditions with that. Mike, you want to introduce that now? Real quick?
Yeah, just an update from last time. There was interest in limiting a couple of uses in the proposed zone that involved medical offices or clinics. The applicant agreed to restrict those uses. So the revised ordinance in your packet includes zoning conditions that would prohibit medical related uses.
Any questions with that? Thank you. Item 7.2 is an ordinance adopting our final budget for 2021 and 2022. We'll be discussing that a little bit more because it's kind of a unique way, because the current budget includes the stormwater fee. So if we choose to do something different with the stormwater fee, we'll adopt it subject to. Is that right, Shane?
As far as the rate,
Right.
well, there's an exhibit to the ordinance that has the rate structure on it, and so if there was discussion right now about what the sense of the council was about the rate, but then there would be time between the two meetings to generate an exhibit.
Great, okay, we'll come back and talk about that during our work session. Then 7.3 is ordinance enacting code chapter 70.29 concerning a stormwater utility fee. That's related to that same discussion. So Matt, any initial comments regarding that proposed ordinance?
No, sir. We'll present it for councils during the public hearing and the discussion with the council.
And we'll talk about that during the budget too.
We do have Justin and Emily here as well that will answer questions as well if we don't have any.
Yep.
So just want to recognize that.
Excellent, excellent. Then item 7.4 is a reappointment to the Planning Commission of Jessica Chappell. Want to introduce who she is, and she's already, it's a reappointment, so
Yeah, she hasn't been on the commission for very long, but she's done a good job. She has a great background, if you can see it with her resume. And we're recommending approval of reappointment for her. She's been a good asset for the group.
questions? Moving forward, 7.5, a resolution consenting to reappointments to the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Committee. Greg Reed, Sarah Ricketts, and Jennifer Shaw. And isn't Jennifer the chair?
She is.
Does a great job. Any questions, comments regarding those reappointments? 7.6 is resolution consenting to a reappointment to the Architectural Review Commission. And I know that there was a resume sent out with Sarah Kovac, which was quite impressive and leads a different approach. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an appointment, so
Right.
she'll be new, but Mike and I met with her and she has a great background. Does architectural work for Maverick Inc. right now and has a lot of experience in both the land use processes as well as her experience as an architect. So recommending approval.
Okay, item 7.7 is consenting to the appointment of an emergency manager. The Assistant Chief Paul Brennan. Sally, aren't you tied with that group? So any questions, concerns on that appointment? I think it's kind of like a reappointment too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's based on state code and some
Right.
changes and that there's a requirement of each.
Okay, but
entity.
he's been in that position for.
Yeah.
Okay, 7.8, resolution 2021-30, entry into an interlocal agreement regarding the community renewable energy program. That's been discussed last couple of meetings with Samantha.
This is actually the second or third resolution we've had on this particular subject. We had to do some interest and then had to do something else. This is actually formally putting this in.
And I think this is also in conjunction with, I mean, Milford does her separately and Holiday does her separately, but
And they both have approved this. This also has a funding commitment, which has
in the budget.
been built into the budget.
There was just some information that got posted that said we were just finally getting around to it, but we have been working on this for at least a year and a half.
Item 7.9 is a resolution approving the production team, which is it's a city-sponsored play. So Doug, any comments on that? Matilda, I guess, is that the play we're doing?
Matilda is well underway. There's, I didn't get a chance, but to see some of they've actually got two different people playing each part, and each one of them, they're staggered. So it's going to be, they're excited about it, and it's things are opening up. Very
Right.
excited about it.
I think they had, what, hundreds of
Lots
tryouts?
of tryout, a lot of people
A
applied,
lot of interest.
a lot of interest.
The plays in
That's cool.
start July 9th through the 17th. Don't lose off.
It's going to be fun to see that.
Item 7.10 is resolution 2021-32. It's performance contracts for Butlerville Days. Scott, any Hawkwatch and International, and which would be interesting?
These are similar to what we've done, just the contracts with the various groups that'll be performing or doing other things.
Just remind me, we'll want to confirm, maybe when we meet, talk with Riley's presentation later about our fireworks display that night, make sure that we're all comfortable with that. Okay, any questions on the business meeting? If not, we're already a quarter after, and we've got a busy work session, so let's move right into the discussion of a gravel pit. So Mike, I'll let you lead off. And
Thank you, Mayor. I gave an update on the gravel pit development at the last meeting, and I think there was some desire among the council to give the council time to just discuss the outstanding concerns or any comments that were out there amongst yourselves. So I have not a lot of new information tonight. I am going to share a more detailed estimate of the financial impact of this development. We got some numbers from the finance department and some feedback from UFA previously, and then some additional information, some tax revenue estimates. So I'll share that first, and then I will kind of take this wherever the council wants to go with it. So let me start here. So we built this out further, a few different additional sources of information, but on the left, we calculated the estimated assessed value of each building at completion. Kind of lumped the 6 retail buildings into one, but that's an estimate of assessed value at completion. And then from that derived estimates on annual property tax revenue and annual local sales tax revenue. So not the full sales tax, not the full 7%, but the 1% that comes to the city both directly and through redistribution by the state of Utah. So those are the numbers reflected here. Would be the at full build out of what's proposed right now, the estimated annual tax revenue. So property taxes equal about $183,000, and that is applying the residential exemption that exists in Utah. So we assess the value at 55% of the actual assessed rate, and
That's for both.
that would be for
buildings?
the apartment building and the condominiums.
Apartment, I thought the apartment buildings would get that.
Our treasurer said that apartment buildings are valued that way and are
Really?
assessed that way. So I'm
Remind me
basing
the
on-
time horizon over 5 years. or
Well,
6 years?
there's 6 or 7 phases. The apartment building would be first, the condominium building being last, and I think the rest is, I think they'd be consistently developing the entire time, but yeah, probably 5-6 years total.
And may I ask Chief Russo a question? In terms of impacts to the city, I know this will probably come up, but will we be able to hear from the chief directly as you go through the
Sure,
presentation?
yeah. I did get a number. There was a budget request put in for additional officers based on this development application. That number's in here. That may be too low, it may be too high. I don't know, but that's what we got from the finance department. Based on the ratio of officers per resident that we currently have, assuming no other growth or population change, if it was just this development, that would warrant 1.5 to 2 additional officers at roughly $85,000 a year. So that is,
That's all inclusive.
that's included on the right. That's not, the number on the left is the gross, so you'd have to subtract the number on the right from that total.
And that
But
85,000 is all in, all benefits.
that's what was provided to me from the budget request this year, but
I see maybe a shaking of the head the wrong way.
Well, the baseline officer can make as much as 85,000. You had benefits in there, supervision, training, equipment, vehicles. That number's much higher. And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to cover 500 people stacked on top of each other with 1.5 to 2 people in 11-story short-term rental complex that is proposed there.
The other concern I was going to bring up is, I know we have a ladder fire truck. The height has been an issue to us on this project. Is that going to be another issue, Riley, on that?
Well,
Height that's always a challenge, especially for those ladders. So, I mean, they're only, the one that we have up here is probably capable about 75 feet. And even then, positioning and all that, you're still
You're gonna lose it.
extremely limited. Yeah. So we do the best we can with those. So it's something to consider, but it usually doesn't stop these kind of things. So a lot of it for us will be demand on service. A lot of these don't often, we're already in a good place as far as the call volume. So that's really what we look at, and then we just reposition resources as needed. So
But Roddy, could I assume that once this is fully built out and even further south, that Fire Station 110 would require a fourth?
yeah, there's definitely potential for that. Just as the call volume goes up, yeah, we'll look at increasing resource capabilities. And that'd be one thing, is an additional person.
Wasn't that cost close to 300,000 a year? Because we're talking.
I thought it was 4. Oh, we thought it was 5. Oh.
Well,
Not quite 5.
no,
They're ready for
it was
six.
between 3 and, it was between 3 and 4.
I think you're right. Yeah, about 350.
Yeah,
It's about
yeah.
$113,000
Because it's-
on average per person.
Yeah, it's 24/7. Yeah.
Mike, the chief
Yeah.
mentioned short-term rentals. Is this apartment complex a short-term rental?
It's not in the ordinance as an allowed use right now.
But it could be, somebody could request that change. Zoning change.
They would go through the full PDD process to request that. So I don't think that's likely.
That would be the
And we could,
condos, the apartments are, we're kind of like,
Yep.
they're like. I
so
guess by
I'm trying to
default,
think of what our short-term
regular
rental
term.
ordinance, the apartments, that's a rental project. We wouldn't see short-term rentals there.
That would be the 30 days, just like any other apartment.
Just normal, yeah, multifamily rental. Our ordinance right now says if it is fronting on a public street, that short-term rentals are not allowed. Both of those buildings front on what will be a public street.
Oh, this is that, so that one that's
So our
going to-
ordinance
is
would-
going to be dedicated in a public street.
Correct.
So I'm getting a little different perspective then. On this, it says no additional fire departmental staffing is anticipated. So
And that was based on email feedback I got from Riley a while back. So that's. Yeah,
Is it still true?
it wouldn't require like an additional engine or station, but yeah, definitely. Our calls for service will differ from the PDs, or definitely get different calls. We would typically, when we see these kind of things, it's based off of density and population, and the call volume we're running now, it doesn't necessitate a jump in like engines or other units, but yeah, the person's always, especially on a ladder truck, if that's a concern, that's always an asset to have that fourth person. So, now I do want to bring up, we didn't do this level of impact on the other 200 unit building that was approved. So there's a higher level of scrutiny being applied here, but there is a definite economic benefit being
How,
achieved by this development.
how do you see that? If you take 350 and you take, just say 2 officers at, just say it's 100,000 for easy math, then you're at, 550, and you're saying the total annual is 424. Sorry, am I doing it wrong?
Yeah, but there is growth and development elsewhere in the city. There's always an increasing demand for services in the city. To pin it all on this project, it is probably not exactly how that demand for services increases citywide. And where we have a plan, a Wasatch master plan and an ordinance that promote redevelopment of these sites at the densities proposed or even greater. We have the potential to create a place that captures a lot of tourism, a lot of visitors. Right now, people leave the ski resorts and some of them stop in the city, but there's not a lot of places to go. Now there's a potential to go to a hotel and a restaurant or apartment right within our city that we capture now that we haven't previously.
Remind me the timing of those. So apartment, just,
Yeah, I can
Apartment
open a phasing plan. It's apartments, and then the hotel and retail
are next.
kind of are all next, and then condominiums would be last.
And which one's furthest east?
The
On the apartments were.
let me see if I can get to a
condominium is.
East is up on this, so the apartment building is eastern in the middle, and the condominium is the northeastern. And then this building here.
Which was
is
first?
The hotel,
Yeah,
the apartment building.
Apartments, then the retail, then the condo.
Maybe you could have Rockworth put like on each of those images, the date by which they think it's gonna come
Yeah, so-
online on this image. I mean, just something for more, I'm a visual person, maybe nobody else is, but it's a lot of information to have this is a nice cheat sheet for us, for me personally, that
They are here, so if the council wants to ask them questions, that opportunity is there. We have a phasing plan. We can add estimated dates to that as well. So we are creating, a lot of new residents, potential to create a lot of new jobs. Again, we have that affordable housing piece that really helps us achieve our state mandated affordable housing goals.
so when you get sorry, I'm asking too many questions, but population growth of 1,000, that's assuming what, 2 per unit or something?
Roughly, yeah, 420 or so total units. So two plus per family per unit. Could be, again, it's an estimate. It could be lower.
Or higher?
It could be higher, yeah.
Usually what, 2-bedroom type thing?
I think
Is that what it is?
1 to 2 bedroom will probably be the most common type of unit in there.
So maybe 1,500 between 500.
That would, I
1,500.
think, be a high end estimate.
But
1,500.
5 to 15, 1,000 being the average.
Yeah, I think that's
Do
fair.
we know what school they will bus to?
No, we do not. We do send these plans to the school districts. Just for
It'll
input.
probably
Um,
Butler.
Yeah, Butler.
Yeah. Just think of location. Yeah.
And then one time estimated fee for permits, again, based on building valuation of about $1 million for the permit review and inspection services. So the
But all that
cost of
goes-
doing that,
But all that goes to whoever we contract out, right?
a portion of it.
What portion? What percent? We get 20% of
20
that?
to, no, we get much more than that. I think I don't want to, I think it's 30 to 40% that we pay out. And we retain the rest. The applicant has also expressed interest in proposing annexation into the recreation service area. That area is not in the rec service district right now. So that provides additional customers and additional potential tax revenue to the rec service area as well. Their director has expressed interest in having this development join the city. And all of this is a phased growth. So this impact doesn't happen over 1 year. So we don't go from this year to next year and suddenly have 1,000 new people and 8 new buildings and that. So the ramping up to the impact on city services, like I said, isn't just contingent on this property. It's contingent on how the whole city grows and develops and what continues to happen.
Hey, Mike, I know there's been a lot of concern about building height. But for me personally, if you're up along the east bench of the mountain, the higher the better, provided it's safe from fallout. That would be my 2 cents worth. I know there's been a lot of concern about not getting too high, but you're not obstructing anyone's view. You're up against the mountain. I feel like that's where height should be.
Yeah, I'm more concerned if you're breaking like the skyline or something. If you're going on the hilltop,
yeah.
that's one thing, but when you're down, this one, what we have always talked about was that scar from the mining that's occurred is pretty tall. So it's not as
Certainly.
large a
it's
concern.
called-
No, I know that's one of the items on building massing and rendering, and since you brought it up, we talked about that, because I still personally have a problem with that height of it's probably 40 to 50 feet higher than anything we have through all of Cottonwood corporate, and knowing the concerns the residents had in District 3 when that was built.
But it ruined their view.
Well, it's not just, it ruined the view and several other things, and of course, built lots and stuff, but I just made a commitment back at that time that anything any higher would set a precedent through that whole relative development that I think changed the field, I believe, for our community. And so I personally I think they've done a great job on traffic, sensitive lands, trails, connectivity. But, and we've heard several comments from the Canyon, is it Canyon View, which is right next to them, Canyon Cove?
Yeah, Canyon
You know,
Cove.
and of course, they have concern with the height. It just seems to be almost an outlier in our city.
You know, I should
Anywhere in that area going that high.
just, you touched on this, Mayor, but to clarify, throughout the public process, we received a lot of public comments. A vast majority was from that neighborhood there, and a majority of those comments related to the traffic. And maybe it, you know, I feel like we got the word out pretty well on this, but relatively few comments from city residents on this project.
The ground sketch doesn't really align with this visual. It kind of shows on the ground sketch, the apartment building. It is a little more to the south, like up against the star.
You say it doesn't look like much of a scar is on this
Well,
part of the property. Is that
So
right?
the property line is like right here. So there, it's hard to see, but there's an initial slope and then a bit of a plateau. And then the property continues up, but this is not owned by the applicant. So the current property line cuts across about right here.
In meeting with the HOA over years from the Old Mill Valley, which is probably the closest residence to that from the city perspective, height was one of their primary concerns as well.
We do have a planning commissioner from that neighborhood.
Yeah. Dan Mills.
Looked at this a lot and was one of the recommending votes for the project.
Yeah, I think my concern on the height is similar to maybe what Tally says. I'm just still struggling with where I wish you could reverse the condo and the apartments. That would, I think, make a huge difference. But as you described before, it's not possible.
Yeah, I think I have
Then you're
this.
looking at faults.
I think I have the constraint up, and I think in that case, it's actually the metropolitan water easement.
That kills that idea.
And
You see it
there's,
split right through there.
Is the property owner here tonight, or,
Yeah, so Rockworth Development is joint owner of the
Oh.
property.
but there's, right, isn't there another owner too? Isn't there a landowner?
Yeah, but I think Rockworth has been, they're the owner in this case. They speak on behalf of the full ownership party.
Is the property above that you spoke about not owned by Rockworth? Is
Correct.
that in Cottonwood Heights as well?
That's part of the Walker development.
And no proposals have been made on that property yet.
Well, I will, something that this morning I was at a Utah Foundation, did I get that name correct, or board meeting, the mayor's asked me to pick up. And while that discussion was more related to aerospace and some of the things that are going really, really well in Utah, it almost immediately moved from, we need this many engineers, we need this kind of stuff, because we really have this great thing happening in the economy, to they need some, they need someplace to live. And the housing really became a significant part of that discussion on, well, if we bring these people into anywhere in northern Utah, where are they going to go? And I started thinking about this, you know, what you have here potentially is a place that's easy to get to the freeway for people who come in and live. There is some affordable housing, you know, component that I really like. I'm glad that we get that. So for some of those, and they were talking about, you know, engineering jobs, some fairly good paying ones. And I thought, you know, this would be a location for people like that to kind of come. And so that also balances with the height. If you took off a story or 2 stories, or, you know, more from the either, but I guess specifically the condos in this case, that would, you know, be that many fewer units less. That's not going to make a huge dip in the overall scope of Utah housing. But even though that whole subject was on that whole presentation was on a specific industry, it was very, the people on the panel and that were listening were very conscious about the housing and where are these people going to go. There's not a lot of places that are this convenient.
No, I think everything you say is right on, and I know
to the
that
freeway.
when I travel other parts of the valley, what's so great about Cottonwood Heights is access. One is access. When I came back from New York, the other thing was how close we are to the mountains. And I think there's no question all those things are fantastic. I think it's a great project that, and I think assuming that we take care of traffic and geotechnical issues, all that stuff, it's just that one building is just, I think, a little bit of an outlier when you go down from Cottonwood Corporate all the way up through to Wasatch. I think this is 40 feet higher than anything else in that whole area. And I think I understand the scar issue, and that goes back years ago when I heard that. But at the same time, appropriate reclamation of that hillside will keep it more aesthetic. And I don't think we have to try and hide it. I think we just maintain that same feel all the way through from Cottonwood Corporate all the way through around to Fort Union, and we're great. Yeah, so I just have a problem with that height. I don't, I'd be a little bit flexible, but yeah.
I think if we went to the tech community and said, you can live in this complex and be 30 minutes to the airport or 30 minutes to the ski resort, it will go like wildfire.
Oh, yeah, no question. That's not a question. It's just like every house that's for sale goes like wildfire.
True.
I agree, but again, that's across the whole valley too. Yeah.
I
Not a
probably-
question. It's great. I'm just saying, still protecting it,
Yeah.
protecting our city and those who live here.
So is it the condo complex? You don't like the height or? the
Yeah.
apartment?
Condos.
Apartments are fine.
is
Everything else is fine.
So if
10
they-
plus 3, is
what if
that
they
correct?
knocked off the couple from the condo and went up on the apartment? They're smiling.
So one option that the council could consider that I feel we could build into the ordinance would be to, because the condo is phase 6 or 7 or of 6 or 7 is the last phase. We could include it as part of the PDD, as part of the approval, but subject to the mass and the density of the building going through a separate legislative process when that phase is preparing to begin construction. So that would essentially entitle the use, but leave the massing and the density up to the council's consideration, the council at the time's consideration prior
So
to.
council at the time, what's that saying?
That's saying,
Yeah.
that's saying Mike
There's a
Johnson.
new
plan on
I'm
mayor.
saying this is the last phase. I'm being as open as I can, but that is an option that has been discussed with the applicant. It's not the preferable approach, but it is one that they've agreed they could work with.
So you approve everything and you approve that footprint for a condominium, but just not the massing.
You leave the final height and the density and the unit count up to a future legislative process.
Oh, no thanks.
So it's an option.
Can we talk a little bit about, I have to say, I don't love the frontage either. I think Tally made some good points early on about berms and trying to hide the parking lot. I really don't love when you come into our city. I don't know, I just,
Yeah, so one of
I love
the,
it.
it's a little tough to see, but what they're proposing, that there is some elevation change and some thick landscaping and then some, I mean, on here, it's kind of like Gabion type rock wall, buffer walls, but one of the Architecture Commission's stipulations is that vehicle headlights cannot be visible. The final design, when they come in with this phase and go through the ARC's review process, the cars cannot be visible from Wasatch Boulevard.
just the headlights or the whole car.
I would have to check the exact language and I can do
You're
that.
saying the cars on Wasatch
The
would be
cars-
shining into the window?
No, so you can't, so when you're on Wasatch, you don't see a parking lot.
Oh,
That's
okay,
blocked
all
from
right,
view.
all right.
Sorry, I maybe forgot that you mentioned that.
So, yeah, and then there's a lot of information, so I understand, but that was one of the ARC's hard requirements when they went through this process.
That's important. too.
And we got
Somebody
confirmation
parking with their
from,
headlights shining.
we got confirmation from Holiday about the traffic. Yeah.
They're okay.
We did.
Yeah, so, and I can give a quick summary of that, because, so this is the alignment. You can see actually these two pictures. This shows the previous one. They were proposing to square off the intersection, which would have required quite a bit of work and reconfiguration there. The new approach is actually to leave the existing intersection as is. and have the new road stem off of that. So this traffic flow remains exactly as it is today, which was a big concern raised by Holiday. And the exiting the project site becomes the stop control intersection, but traffic can continue to flow as it does on, I don't remember what they call this. I think they call it Wasatch Boulevard.
Is that a stop sign control or a yield?
Yeah, that would be stop sign.
So Mike,
That's what you keep saying. Is that the correct?
This is the resolution that Holiday has supported.
so Mike, just back to this, if the scale is correct on this, you've got, see the parking stalls?
Yeah.
If you go to that road, it looks like there's only 1 or 2 cars before you hit the road. Is that right?
Where,
To the very bottom, if you
Down
go
here.
right, yeah, down here, see where the parking stalls are?
yeah, this does not connect to any outside road system. This is all
I understand
interior.
that, But
Okay.
what I'm saying, you're saying you couldn't see either the parking lot.
Oh, yeah, so
But
these
it looks
parking
like they're
stalls,
only 2 cars lengths away from the parking.
well, that's from the right of way line. But UDOT's right of way is wider than the road itself there. But again, that's a stipulation that the applicant will need to justify to the ARC.
Okay, we've, traffic and access is one of the things we want to bring back. I think we're conceptually there. Sensitive lands, I think, I believe they've done a great job. And again, a lot of it's going to come to follow through and looking at those things in detail through the development and the connectivity.
I have some, can you go back to that?
Yeah,
I've
oh, yeah,
got-
sorry.
I have a few comments on that.
Please, please.
So I know that commercial real estate speaks in square feet, but I speak in acres and miles and half miles. So the open space numbers mean nothing to me. And then I guess my other concern is that, if they're going to have over 1,000 residents here, it's likely that those residents are going to be using these trails and connections. So I don't know why we as a city would want to adopt that maintenance through the long period when they'll be collecting revenues from their dwellings.
So I verified, because you brought that question up.
Yeah.
It says, if that trail connects to a public trail system in the future, the city may require dedication. It gives us the option to, but does not require us to take it over.
Super. Can you put those numbers in?
Yeah, so the top number there is just over 6 acres,
Which top number, the two?
native hillside and public trails, so 263,000.
You're at 44,000 per acre, right?
Plaza space is just under an acre because 43,000 is an acre.
Tally, is an acre good for?
And so I should clarify that the plaza and the plaza space is like this area between buildings. So outdoor dining areas and pedestrian pathways. This is a landscaped area, this giant plaza here that will sit on top of the water line easement is a large public gathering
That's like
area.
5 acres or something. along those?
That's part of the landscape
Part of that
area
Yes,
here.
right, yeah. I
Yep.
was just trying to equate that into acres.
And then the 63 adds the hillside.
You're 43, so
Well, if 6 equals
Well, 3.5.
263.
Let me calculate, sorry. 206.
But Mike, when we talk about that acreage, that hillside,
4.7.
Just the apartments and condos.
oh, well,
the
that's easy.
reclamation requirements,
About the
Uh-huh.
size
What does
of
that
what we're
include?
sitting on.
That's complete engineering of the slope and restoring it to a natural state with revegetation.
with native grasses
Yeah.
and whatever like that.
Yeah.
So there's
And
really
that's-
not a visual scar. there.
Right, and that's part of phase 1, so that has to happen with the first phase of development. And that also includes the trail.
I don't want to.
Okay, so again, the areas, traffic and access, sensitive land hazards, the reclamation is critical to me because hopefully, again, as Mike just mentioned, that the reclamation includes regrading the hillside, revegetating, so hopefully it's not a scar issue. Again, not to
I did want to just,
conversation, but that again tells me the height
And
is,
that happens early, right?
Yeah.
Reclamation of the hill.
phase 1, it has to be part of phase
Yeah,
1.
yeah.
This is the language, this is still working, but this is language we will build into any final ordinance that ensures, so we've had substantial amount of sensitive lands reports done. Some of those reports say the way we're going to mitigate these hazards is by doing this thing. And then at each phase, we require, whatever this thing is to be done. But this is the language here that ensures that happens. This basically says every phase has to come in and be compliant with sensitive lands, has to implement whatever mitigation standards were identified in the original reports. If there's an issue that is identified that affects the layout of a building or the location or the ability to construct it, then the full PDD has to go through the legislative amendment to resolve that.
Because that's an important point.
This is a long way to say nothing will go vertical until sensitive lands is fully vetted on each building. Additional trenching at each building pad is done at the finished grade level when they've begun site grading. So no building begins vertical construction until those hazards are fully cleared, inspected and analyzed.
Slope stability, fall hazard studies.
It's all, yeah, all the hazards that apply here.
Okay, so in the event they're doing the grading, they find something that they didn't know was there, that then means they have to come back for an amendment or
Well,
a reprocess?
If
or
they
what?
can mitigate it without amending the development plan, then they would need to do that. If they can't mitigate it without relocating a building or substantially,
Yeah, found a new
Just
fall or
completely
something like
modifying
that,
the
that would
plan.
obviously,
Then it would have to
you have to come back and start.
because then what's
Process.
codified, the development plan would not be what can be built, so they'd have to revise it.
I think that's an important point. Some people are thinking they can just go through the whole project, but each one will be completely reissued, a new permit, I guess.
Yeah, so right now, they've prepared reports that identify, I think the language says known and suspected hazards, but they also lay out plans for how they're going to mitigate those hazards, and that includes trenching each building pad and doing other engineering. And if they can't make that work, or there's, like you said, there's another issue that's identified, then the whole plan would need to be amended.
So
And that's a planning commission, the same
It's the full,
process.
yeah, neighborhood meeting, planning commission, city council,
Okay.
yeah, the whole thing.
So question back to you and maybe Shane. You introduced a new concept tonight, which is approving it with one exception, which is the condominium would be, the footprint would be held out of the approval.
Yeah, I
Explain
think
that again.
there's ways you could say the say it's phase 8. I don't know if that's what it is, but phase 8 is approved subject to massing and density being reviewed by the city council prior to construction.
Be like a zoning.
Reviewed
And I think the
Or
council
approved.
could
It's
set a
approved.
maximum. So, if this is what's proposed, you could set this as a maximum. But say that is still subject to legislative, so planning commission and city council review before that is fully approved.
What I'm saying, that piece would go back to the planning commission as well, or strictly?
That phase would come, we would take it because the planning commission is the public hearing authority, so we would take it through them and through city council. The architecture review commission will review it in any case because they review each phase. But you could still impose guardrails on it, so it doesn't exceed what's proposed here. But you're not fully committing to 13 stories and
So is a
99
plan
units.
to bring this back to the council for a vote soon?
Yes. We would like any feedback. We're beginning to compile the finalized package because all the plans are, we're doing a little bit of cleanup where we have some plans that show the old road, but we're making those final technical changes.
Let's give Mike some final feedback. Plus, one side note is the month of July, do we have council members gone?
Second time, second meeting, you're the first, I think.
I might be cool. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Both.
you're the second. So Mike, you want to maybe take that into consideration? I don't want to have concerns that.
It's my district. I'm just saying. I think it's my district.
It is. It is your district. I used to think it was three, but it is four.
Once you got that far outside.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
confirm with Tim.
Yeah, but we want to take that into consideration and, I mean, again, I don't want to come across not appreciative of the developers. I think they've worked very closely with our planning commission, with the art, planning staff. I think They've been very sensitive. My issue again is height, and I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. If you go back with the record, that was my concern when he passed the PDD zone. It was height. And the person sat next to me had the same concern. So that's my concern. I have some flexibility in that, but I really appreciate the reclamation components, the connectivity. It's still a lot of density. I mean, it may not look like it, but that's a lot of density on that small parcel, yeah. And so adding additional height is even more density. Yeah.
It is. I'll just,
Can we
I-
keep talking amongst ourselves maybe? And then,
Sure.
I mean, I think it
Of
would,
course.
it might be helpful because I saw you looking at it.
Oh, me? In your parentheses where it says slope stability, fault hazards, there's nothing about ground motion. And I know we have really high-tech under the building devices that handle. I would love to see a ground motion study.
so the plan is to base that on what's in our sensitive lands ordinance. So if that's part of the required mitigation, then that would apply. I can confirm that. I think Geostrata discussed that in one of their reviews. So that may be in a report already, but I'll double check.
But again, as Christine suggests, with the council among ourselves, are you ready to bring this back? What things do you feel are unresolved? You need answers to those.
Personally, I would be ready. I've stated my case. I was on this side of the table when we did the original PDD as well. But I don't know if, I mean, obviously, if you took off stories from one another to the other, I don't know if that, I'm not the builder. I don't have any idea if that even makes sense, but.
Well, the one option is to just hold out that footprint and approve everything else. Then that part can be reviewed later and further discussion and debated. And I don't know.
I mean, I would be
Allows
okay to
them-
move
allows them to
forward.
proceed. Yeah.
And if it took that condition to allow that to happen, I would be okay with that. So.
Doug, comments, thoughts?
I think the issues have been basically verified about the SLAD issues as far as the safety issue and mitigating, any problem. I know some people think that we needed to test the whole area and trench every building before it was constructed. I don't know that, I think we've got stop measures, Mike. Tell me if I'm,
Well,
don't we have stop measures
I
to,
feel that we do.
is there
I
anything?
think it's still a
there?
risky build.
What's
I
that?
think there's still
This is a
significant risk
Complicated
in the
site.
build. It's very,
That's a
Absolutely.
big issue, especially when you get height like that. I mean, that is,
so we may be seeing this meaning the council, not necessarily us individuals, be seeing it in a few years again. We never know.
I mean, when we see those towers, did we say those towers were 85 feet?
The
The
These
right over
here?
there? Uh-huh.
they're 80 to 90 feet,
And the height of this building total is what?
140,
140 feet.
something,
40.
or 43 or something. Like that.
This is close to 5 or 6 stories. So that's going to compare favorably to what's in the Cottonwood Corporate Center today.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and you'll see that all the way through there eventually.
So, yeah, so context is.
I think that look would be consistent and smooth and.
Does this building, it looks in this picture that it has a build out in front, which would be,
Parking.
okay, go to the tallest building here.
Oh, this.
Yeah. Come down a little bit. Is that the same height? See, that's in front of it. How would a truck, Riley, how would your truck, could only hit about halfway up that, right?
If that, the 5-story
Yeah,
one,
because that takes your ladder away from you going up to the east.
that's common with most.
You might even hit the
high-rise buildings.
lower,
Yeah.
yeah.
There is quite a bit of elevation if it were on this.
On that angle, though, parking that truck is
No.
very,
Yeah,
very
you can't
curious.
Oh, but there's
Go out.
sprinkler too and stuff like
Well, we
that.
rely on the systems in the building. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's not so much a truck. yeah.
stairwells and sprinklers.
Yeah.
And the truck, if we're pumping out the window, that's
To-
not
to-
So that's not a concern, really?
it's a
What about an earthquake
concern,
though?
but
When an earthquake comes and suddenly you can't have sprinklers? I mean, I know that's
Yeah.
far-fetched, but we didn't think 9/11 would happen either. And
Yeah, that's, again, it's worst case scenario. We do the best we can to deal with those situations, but it definitely limits what we can do.
And when you get the buildings up over what the ladders can get to, you have just different requirements.
Yeah, and a lot of fire code will dictate where a lot of that stuff to the lanes are and the roads and access and egress. But yeah, anytime you get a height over like 5 stories, most fire department ladder trucks really become inadequate or unable to effectively rescue at that level.
Doesn't look like there's any access on the back side of this. Is
I
that
noticed
right?
that too, yeah.
Behind the condominium.
Very limited.
Right.
Okay, I know we're running out of time. We have other
There
agenda
is on
items.
the apartment building.
Yeah.
Final
I just,
comments?
yeah,
Go.
I mean, this is like probably the most important vote that we've had on the land use issue. And so I was curious, I don't know, did you finish, Doug? Can you just?
I was just going over the concerns Mayor talked about height. That is when height is considered, there's a lot of things to consider. Earthquake, we're considered about earthquake. We're considered, it's going to be sprinkler. We know that. I'm just trying to think if we know that we can't move it to the south because of the water issue. Obviously, the people in Holiday are going to be upset on that side. There's a lot of issues here, but I think most things have been taken care of, but not the height.
Yeah, I agree.
No, but I kind of said what my concerns are, or many concerns that have been brought up.
Our hands are kind of tied on my biggest concern, because our ordinance is 25 feet away from a fault line. And if you're going to build your home along a train track and you knew at some point that train was going to derail, how many feet do you want between that track and your house? And our ordinance reads 25 and we're stuck with that, but I don't feel personally that it's enough feet.
And how many feet are we talking?
So the setbacks, what's in the ordinance is the minimum and it's based on the study. So if there's a fault that slopes down at a severe angle, that setback could be increased. But yeah, there's I don't know, for all these buildings, the setback depends on the building type and the type of construction. But I know 25 feet, I think, is the single family residential standard.
And my concern with that is to be absolutely assured we're in compliance with our SLED's ordinance and that nothing goes vertical until all those geotechnical issues are mitigated.
We can add any language we want to that, right, to SWEDS? No, we can't do that now. Can we add that as part of the PDD approval? Like emphasize it? I mean, is there?
Well, I got Shane to tell me how we can emphasize. I think
I thought
that's,
that was already addressed, but I could be wrong.
Well, that was the quote I showed, is
Yeah.
that
nothing goes vertical.
it doesn't go vertical until all SLED standards and reports and trenches and extra work is done.
But that doesn't mean we couldn't add that in the PD, we couldn't add that in sort of our approval of this, because if anything happens.
We can
in future
restate
code-
it,
Right, I mean, can't we restate it in plain?
That it is,
terms?
that's what I
That's
Yeah,
showed.
but that's,
but we can
That's
restate it as,
legally,
we can
it's
still
like, yeah.
restate it in the minutes.
Oh, we
Yeah.
can state it however you want to write it, we can do
Yeah.
that.
I think that's plainly spoken language sometimes is better than what's written in our ordinances for planners like you might. I mean, I don't speak your language, I'm sorry, but I
No,
speak
it's
the
fine.
mayor's
We can
language.
state it
Sometimes.
any way we
I don't
want.
speak English.
We don't like the legalese of it.
But now the other question then, Mike, is you'll need to work with Tim and communicate as to a timing to bring it back because of attendance. There's a chance that maybe the first meeting in August. If Christine's not here and it's her district. No?
Well, I'm gone the first one for sure, and you're gone the second one for sure, so.
3 years? Go ahead. Speak your concerns. Go ahead.
Folks, you have brought up things that we have given you detailed presentations on. You brought up the parking lots. We have given you an incredible detail on parking lot comparisons. We have given you incredible detail on the cross section between the street and the parking lot. You have had these things for so very long. At the last work session, geotechnical concerns were brought up. The height was brought up. Economic impact was brought up, and access associated with Holiday residents was brought up. Those are your four. You have a letter from Holiday. They're satisfied.
Right, yeah.
Mike has shared with you, you have positive economic impact from the project.
Well,
That's very clear.
That's debatable. That's your opinion.
Okay. An annual impact of $424,000 is the estimate. Annual.
One additional firefighter is over 300,000 a year.
Okay.
Okay. I mean, I'm just putting it in perspective. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I apologize.
We have satisfied not only our geotechnical engineer, but yours. You have spent taxpayer dollars to review our geotech. We are satisfied. Economic impact, geotechnical concerns, all of it. That was what was brought up last time. So am I hearing more now?
No, you're not. So
So
what you're hearing only is you're saying we're ready to vote with what you offered as a compromise as far as to move forward. And all I said to the council is, when can we vote? And
if they get pushed to August.
well, I'm just trying to get all the council members here. We're all going to talk about that. We haven't determined that.
I have my partner sitting right here. How do you feel about August, partner? Well, can I stand up?
Oh, yeah, go right ahead, please. Yeah, I'm not, we're not trying to.
Regular meeting to speak?
Yeah,
So I can
Is this
see.
the appropriate time?
yeah.
The council asked them in a work session.
To work session.
My name's Alan Thor, one of the owners of the project. Family's. You have a question?
What's that?
Did you
No.
have a question? Oh, you were looking.
No, I just gave, we only have a couple minutes and
I'll be really
we
quick.
got, yeah,
Thank
so I just want to give you an opportunity to hear those concerns and we're trying to move this forward and I'm trying to move it forward as fast as I can. Yeah,
Okay, I'll be to the point.
sure.
A lot of years we've been trying to get this accomplished, okay? And as I understand it, we're now to the point where we have this ordinance that we have, our application complies with it all. We're not asking to go higher than what the ordinance allows. We're not asking for anything that the ordinance doesn't allow, but we've got there. So for a long time, I've been wondering why, is it, it's a big thing, right? Of
course.
Okay, thank you. So I've been wondering for a while here, why, when what we're doing is taking an eyesore, something that creates dust, and not change it into what we're proposing. I can't grasp why we don't have a decision already. So what we're left with is a group of people with a big asset that's non-producing, that our only option, if we're not voted in a positive way on this, is to go back to what we've always done for 70 years there. And that's crush sand and gravel and make concrete. And that is the only thing left for us. That, you know, and then sue all of you,
Yeah.
honestly, because that's, I don't want to stand here and act like I'm a guy threatening you, because I don't do threats.
No,
I
you
just
have-
do what I say I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I can't see any more clear option than we make sand and gravel and we have a big battle with you guys, or we produce something that is far better looking than what you have, makes a great tax base,
Yeah, I think you
makes
missed.
everybody happy. So that's kind of,
Yeah.
I didn't want to really debate or talk or massage anything, but that's where we're at, guys.
No, and
This is us today.
I appreciate your comments. I
Okay.
think you maybe misunderstood a little bit. I think as I tried to clear, I think you've been very cooperative and very supportive. And I think Mike Johnson's reported great cooperation. And today was a day when we kind of brought it to a conclusion of where we were. The PDD zone is different than most planning processes because it's a legislative matter at this point. And a couple of us here were involved when we created the PDD zone. You say everything's within the parameters, but we set broad parameters by design so that we would be able to have that discussion in this process to look at the impact of the height, because we had debate at that time height. We says, we'll put it up higher so we can discuss it. And we have the right to discuss height. And the ordinance does allow us to say we won't accept a certain height. That's our right, but we don't have the right I believe, and I understand, to hold you up too much longer and to give you a yes or no, and I'm trying to move that as quickly as we can. And again, I think you've done an excellent job and most of it. The height issue, I mean, I've said that from the beginning, but, and if you would have maybe come back earlier and tried to mitigate the height, it would have been an easier thing, but no one's ever brought that height down. And so I understand, and I'm just one person. But I'm trying to have a vote when the council is here. If you want to tell us we have to vote before first meeting in August, then the council consider if they want to do that or not. And again,
Well-
regarding it, let me finish. Regarding a lawsuit, you have every right. And I've been doing
Yeah,
this,
and
I've been
it's
doing this
not-
for
I mean,
I've been doing this for 50 years.
Put yourself in my place,
I
in
do.
our families.
You have every right to do that.
We've been at least, I don't know how many years ago, but a minimum of 7 when we started this PPD thing and trying to make something.
Yeah.
And so here we are today. In my observation, a big scarred mountainside.
Mhm.
Yes, we did that, but people needed sand and gravel and concrete, so we made that for them. We're offering to fix that. We're offering to make a good tax base and all these great things, and it's needed. I mean, apartments are needed, housing is needed.
Yep, we
Everyone knows
appreciate,
that.
we appreciate all those things.
Or we go back to what we've done always. And
Well, I don't think
and
it's
so it's
not,
kind of, that's what to vote on, okay? And
Right.
3 years of, 3 years just directly with you guys on what we're offering is long enough. I mean, we're out of time.
well, we're right here. We're ready to move. And just, we're saying is that
I think it'd be great if you guys could vote on July 6th. That's really what I want to see.
well, we have the person who that's the district's in will not be here at that meeting.
And I might just
But like,
add, I
who is-
work,
oh, go
I
ahead, sorry.
work on $300 million projects. I'm actually going to be on my own projects. I develop large wind turbines. So I'm very aware of what you all are working against. The NIMBYism, I get it. There was an article in the Tribune that may have read it today. But when we go into a community and we change the character, or we create something big and new, you know, sometimes we'll even donate a fire truck. Like those are, like, we take this very seriously, this partnership of working with the community. And I have to say that between your comments and your comments, I don't feel warm and fuzzies by the tone. And I don't feel like this partnership, you all have had your machines there sitting idle for I don't know how long. And we haven't gone after you litigiously to move that material or those machines. So I think we're working collaboratively with you, even though we get calls, hold on. So I think it's only fair that through a pandemic, we haven't been able to meet as a council. This is probably the first time
Year and a half.
in a year and a half we've been able to talk about your project. And I think it's in your interest for us to discuss things, because I think that we've gotten more comfortable with your project through even this discussion than we ever had. So I think having this extra time is only helping you. I don't know that you see that, but I feel it with just what we've heard here today.
I don't see it. 3 years is, you know, we were here well before pandemic time came, and you know, I get some of what you're saying. But it, you know, 3 years, guys, it's just seems so simple to me. Sand and gravel production with concrete, what's going on there, you know, all the things that brings.
Can
Or
you tell
develop
me
the grant. I mean,
honestly,
yes, what?
can you tell me honestly that would ever go back to gravel?
Why wouldn't, as opposed to sitting there? Are you kidding me?
I mean, this seems illogical.
I already have Harper wondering if they can bring all the stuff out to IA expansion to that pit and crush it.
No, I was just curious.
I've got the concrete guys that are paving all that stuff, the one for the batch plant there.
Yeah.
We've already had the meetings. I said, you know, we think we're gonna develop this, hopefully, but I'm just letting you know. I don't
That's
want to
always
stand
a-
here and act like I'm uncooperative, like the lady says, or anything else. But those are the only options, guys, really. I mean, we're out of time. We're out of nowhere to
So
go.
you're saying
other than back to what
if we don't vote before August 2nd, it's going back to gravel operation?
Well, how many votes do I need? There's 5 of you, right?
Right,
Are 3 of you gonna be around on July 6th?
yes.
I don't know why we can't vote, but hey, I know you're short on time, but thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we need to move ahead. So we'll look at that, we'll look at the timing of things and we'll coordinate that with Mike Johnson and Tim and with all of you as council
Can
members.
I say one last thing? before we
Please.
move on? 'Cause I was incredibly excited about this development when I ran for office. And what a huge asset it was going to be to the community. And I was really excited to have involvement in that process. But that's before we knew it was riddled with fault lines. And tonight, listening to Mike Johnson is the first time I felt remotely comfortable that we're going to adequately address that landmine of fault lines. Sometimes your shiny property turns out to be underneath a death trap. So I think slowing down and getting it right is vital.
Well, and I think like Christine said, is I felt this is one of the first times we've all met face to face in a year and a half. So with what Mr. Henroyd is offered as far as approval with holding out that one piece to mitigate that height issue later and get better educated, I think is a great opportunity to facilitate the thing moving forward. But we'll just need to determine a time when we want to vote. Okay, and we'll talk about that later. We'll move forward. Go ahead.
We would like you all present. There has been a tremendous amount of work and effort associated. And I do think the pandemic has interrupted some cooperation because of work on together. We have reached out to each of you individually. If any of you have anything that you would wish to reach out to us for, we would appreciate it, especially if we still have time. If having you all together, we think there's value in having you all together and getting everyone's opinions. That's been part of this process from the beginning. We're certainly hearing, some frustration on our part. We don't want it to go on much longer. I mean, you all know you have put affordable housing as a component into our project.
Yeah, we've worked through that. Yeah.
You know what's happening with costs.
Yeah.
Costs aren't getting better. Time goes by. That only makes things less.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. And we do in the long run want to be a good partner with you as well. So we'll work through that. Let's move forward. Next item on the agenda is the stormwater fee discussion. So Matt,
You're fine. So Mayor and Council, what we wanted to try to accomplish here in this work session, because we have a public hearing in the business session coming up. Give you as a council an opportunity to discuss the manual. I believe you have the manual, go over some questions you might have there, and also discuss the proposed fee, which we're bringing to you right now is $750 a month per ERU. We've been through that process with you and had those discussions. And so we would just like to, at this point, during this part of the meeting, is to open it up for questions. We do have, like we've mentioned, Justin and Emily are back here from Bowen Collins to help us out if there are any discussions you want to have with them or questions, but we'll try to answer your questions before the public hearing tonight. So I'd like to just turn it over to Mayor and open it up at this point.
as long as he's not going to threaten to sue us, we'll talk to him.
I don't think Justin will, so.
And they're just here.
Yeah, they're here to answer
I
questions.
know.
We don't have a formal presentation. We wanted to keep this one.
All right,
Obviously, the time we're
think
pushing it.
the whole purpose of tonight's agenda, really to focus more on the council, your discussion, less on presentation.
Correct.
So
I thought your manual was beautiful.
I thought
Yeah,
that
there
was
was a lot of good
outstanding.
in there.
Nicely done.
Emily's gonna raise her hand.
Well, the thing I like most about the manual, as you bring up, is the exceptions that we have in there, or the not the exceptions, but people can be waived from the fee. What's that?
Credits.
The
and-
credits.
Yeah, the credits
Something
and
like that. So-
waivers for.
An ability to pay if they have their own rain barrels, a variety of things. So it's something very well, it's well done. And I appreciate it being some of those initial meetings to give some input on. So yeah, I do too.
I would love a credit for Zeroscape. I would love that.
I think
There
there
is
is
commercially.
But I think we had a
commercially.
constituent of mine reach out on some incentives for xeriscaping parking strips, and I think Tim and staff are looking at that right now, so I think there might be a way.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
separate from this,
Yeah,
but we're
separate
looking
from
at
this.
that through Salt Lake.
Yeah, and I think those are the types of things that we're discussing.
Those
and I
are
think
various
everybody has
LIDs
supported them.
that we are looking at, and they are part of our stormwater program.
The yield on the 7.5 is what? How much gross annual is 1.4 million, if I remember
I
that
believe it was
correctly.
around 1.4. Yes, correct. And that's taking the 300, and Scott will have to help me out, the 300 out of the general fund.
Puts that back in there.
So the proposed fee that we're proposing right now is the 750. We're looking at getting $1 million annually for capital projects and ongoing maintenance from that. And then we have our other costs that we already have that we are, and Scott knows the term here, so it's about 600,000 in existing cost. So that's around 1.7 million is what we're looking, 1.6, 1.7.
That's within the budget,
Yes, I believe that's, yes.
1.6 to 1.7.
I'm giving you general numbers.
But what's in the budget is that plus the additional person to manage
Correct,
the fund.
correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
and
there-
then
there's
that
a
is
new-
the,
It's an
So this-
FTE.
Right, over on the lower left is the revenue, 1.4 million.
Okay.
That comes from the fee, and then over here on the right is the 193,000, and those two together
give you the
generates 1.6 million that's up here at the top. There, just under the picture. The meeting there, so.
Okay, I'm going to throw out a question, and I'm going to jump ahead for time, and I know I may be a lone wolf in this. I'm having a personal problem with the 750, and my personal problem with 750 is because we have a healthy enough budget with what's current in our fund balance, plus what we heard today is another $4 million coming in from the American Recovery Act.
Instead of the 3.7,
Yep,
not beyond the
it's
3.7.
right at 4 is what I saw in the correspondence today from the league. Now, I firmly believe that we need to proceed with the stormwater ordinance because it's a dedicated fund. Once it's in place, it no longer competes with public safety and all these other things. Dedicated funds, so we know we don't get in a situation where it starts getting ignored because it's a dedicated fund. I think we're the only city in the valley that doesn't have the fund. So I'm supportive. I think it's the right thing to do. I just think we can start at a much lower amount because we have funding, I believe, clearly available, which we didn't know 6-8 months ago, that can cover a majority of that for the next 2 years.
Just 2 years though, Mayor. right?
Well, I mean, after that, I mean, you'd see where you would take it year to year.
Mhm.
The recovery money has to be spent in 2 years approximately. But we have money that has restrictions of how it can be spent. But one of the ways we understand it can be spent is for stormwater.
Stormwater capital improvement.
It can't be spent on roads and some of the other things.
And that figure was what again?
It's right at 4 million, just slightly over.
For the 2 years.
Well, it's one, it's not, it comes in 2 different
Oh, it does.
payments.
Well, let's do our best math and figure out if we invest a bunch of money up front, what kind of maintenance will we need?
So we have approximately 11 million in capital project needs right now. And I see that we're going to have a conversation about that funding and how we allocate that funding here in the next month or two. Once we still get the Treasury Department standards, which that hasn't been finalized yet. But I see that as a potential for bridging the gap right now. I mean, we're probably, even after we start collecting, Holiday voted on this last year and I've still not collected anything because they're still administering that. I see that those potential funds are there to start us into capital, get us down the road and be a bridge to once we accumulate the funding to make this happen. So I think that's an important thing to consider as well.
I just have a hard time raising a fee on a residence when we are almost at our maximum in our fund balance carryover we can have legally. Plus we have the 4 million coming in. I still think we need to implement it. I just think that it should
On
be.
the very long term, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because it's a long-term asset, it's a long-term need, it's a long-term
Absolutely,
care.
it's never going to go away. It's
Something
gonna
needs
always
to be,
And within the ordinance, you notice it has inflation built in. It automatically goes up 3% per year. Okay, so it's going to go up every year.
I guess I fundamentally have a hard time because stormwater we've been sort of using general fund money to fund it for years. And so we finally get ready to implement something and it's not fully going to cover the cost even annually. And so for us to take the fee that we implemented, which is not enough, and then to reduce it because we have extra money when we also have needs like the public works building that we can consider. We've talked about open space, these developments that we didn't talk about with Rockworth. You bring another 1,000 people to our to our community, and we don't have parks or trails or anything for them. And so yeah, we have 4 million there, but that $4 million in the general or set aside could be used for all those things I just described. And so,
It can't, though.
yes, it can, because you could take that
It's
stormwater money, move it here and then move money around. You can move all that money around.
Right, but we only, well, to a degree, but I mean, you only have, what, 600,000 a year we've been taking from general fund from stormwater?
And then how much, and then we're also taking money from the general fund for the salaries that we just increased, didn't we? The 750,000. Correct?
Right.
So we're grabbing a lot of money every year from our general fund already. And so that $4 million is not, I don't see why we would reduce a fee that's not even fulfilling the actual needs and reduce it. Because we have money set aside, but that money is going to go away every year anyway. And we have all these other needs that I just described that we should be thinking about. The public works building and the garage and the maintenance, I've pushed back on that, but I've never pushed back on, we need something. And I think, Scott, I agree with you there. We need something for our public works trucks facility.
I
And
agree.
so you just, sorry.
No, I appreciate it, and I'd gladly be a lone person, that's fine, and once we all vote, I'll support it 1,000%. And I don't think we're reducing anything because we've never adopted anything. I'm just saying where we start.
So Mayor, just to be clear, how many cities have had this fee imposed upon them? In 50 cities in Utah, how many people have had this fee?
I don't know about 50 cities, but
Well, I'm just saying generally, I'm just throwing out a number.
And on the Wasatch Front, we're right now an outlier.
we're
We're
probably
the only one
who
that doesn't have it. And have the other people, does that take care of their budget as far as they using their general fund for that?
A lot of the ideal, and I think a lot of them, and Justin was talking about this earlier, they cover all those costs with the stormwater.
It is completely, so the general
A
fund is left
dedicated
open.
fund
Yeah.
is the right way to go. And that's why the service area is so successful. It doesn't have to compete. If you go to Salt Lake County, it's Parks and Recreation. When it went through COVID stuff, it suddenly had to have all kinds of cuts because mandatory services will always take precedent. Once you have the dedicated fee, then it's not going anywhere else. So I get it. But when you have literally almost a surplus in your budget currently, you're getting $4 million, which is like a windfall. It's hard to assess our citizens an additional thing. I'm saying still assess it. I'm saying rather than start at the 70th, 80th percentile compared to other municipalities, you start 25th percentile, and each year through a budget process, we look and see where we need. I still believe, going through the same discussion back when we did our road plan, okay, the information, we still have 700 manhole covers to uncover to find out what really is there. I mean, it's just my opinion. I will support 100% if that's the consensus of the council to go with the 750. I'm not gonna, I just feel that it's unnecessary at this point. A year from now, 2 years from now, yeah, like we do with everything. It's like 3 years ago, we assumed we were going to raise fees this year, we were going to raise tax. We didn't need to do it. I don't think we need to set a stormwater fee at $750.
If we took 4 million that we get from the American Recovery Act and use that for stormwater capital improvements now, would the 750 then cover the total annual spend? So we wouldn't have to take any more money out of the general fund.
Right now in the general fund with the 750, let me set aside the 4 million for a second. There's going to be a subsidy from the general fund
About
into this.
600,000 or so.
Well, no,
300.
200.
Sorry.
200. So we're not going to be self-sufficient
Right.
without use of the general
So,
fund.
but if you took 4 million, then it's instead of 11 million investment, it's 7 million, and then 715. You're pretty close to not needing to borrow from the general fund in the future, correct? You're pretty close. It's only 200,000 a year, you're pulling from the general fund times 10, that's 2 million.
But where does the 11 million come from?
11
That's what
million,
he said.
11
I know,
million
but
is
it's,
capital, is capital projects. There's other needs of 20
Well,
million.
I have to be honest, I don't know what you guys think when you drive around our city, but we spend a lot of money on our roads and our roads are still not fabulous. I mean, we're still, I think, underfunding our roads based on the report, if I remember correctly. So I don't think there's ever been in a situation where we have too much money and we're doing so well. I haven't seen it. I mean, I'd love to get my road repaved, but it's got a lot of those black things all
Yeah.
over it.
We will never have enough money to meet all the demands, requests of villages. No government ever has.
That's my point.
Well, no, I hear you. But at the same time, I think need to be, what's the word, is to be careful on how much and how fast we do that. I mean, it's, if you had $100, if you had $100 a year per resident, what's that? If you looked at that as a tax increase on the property tax, I mean, what's that? 15, 20% tax increase or something like that? That's pretty hefty. When we just received an extra $4 million, plus we had one of the biggest revenue years we could ever have. It just seems like it's limited. But again, I'm going to shut up. If the rest want to do that,
So the average resident then would go from 500 in property taxes to about 600, I think. Is that what the city gets for property taxes per resident? So we're saying for
I pay a lot more than that.
500, right? And if you add the 100
What
that the mayor
we
just
get
spoke
is what we get as a
as a city, what we get as a city is $600. For $600, you get Riley and the fire department coming within a minute and 30. I don't remember the statistics. You have
Minutes,
the
that's pretty
police,
impressive.
right? 4 minutes, a minute and a half.
15
mean,
seconds.
Yeah,
I'd like to send
you
that.
think when you get roads, I mean, when you think about the services you get for $600,
Right.
I have a resident calling me on a Saturday, send a text to Tim and he answers it 10 minutes later. The service that we provide to our residents for $600 a year is a deal, I think. I think we have a great fire and the police. So
I think we'd be really aggressive about the hardship scenarios. And we identify those in the
No,
community.
again,
would impact.
I'm just adding conversation, but the four of you voted on the 750 and I appreciate that. And Christine makes
I'm
excellent
not opposed
points.
to looking at other numbers.
I hear you. It just seems like that it would, to implement it, to get it in there, to do the additional research with that money, get the manhole covers, to validate whatever that long-term capital needs are within stormwater. I think there's still so much information still needs to be obtained. I mean, I know we did the canvas, but to me, it's still a moving target. But again, just my opinion. Yeah.
Well, the only thing I would say to that, what I would also say, what we should be really careful is that we make sure we allocate one-time funds to one-time items and ongoing to ongoing, because while it may work for a one-time project, it doesn't solve us for the whole lifetime of the
That's why
system.
capital projects work so well.
Right.
Because at the same time, in this budget, there's $600,000 per year that goes to salary and benefits, which is going to be annualized every single year. So you make a good point that that's something we have to cover as well going forward, and you're going to have future increases.
This discussion needs to move west.
Okay,
Mayor, can I make just a quick
please.
comment? The fee structure is being incorporated into the city's consolidated fee schedule. The consolidated fee schedule can be changed fairly readily anytime by the council. If it seems like it's too little or too much, why then it can be changed. So just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah,
We don't have to go through
No, that's a good
a
point.
big process to change that fee structure.
The fee schedule and the 750 is in the current proposed budget. So if you're
Which we're voting on tonight.
right.
And what was at the open house? What was the general sentiment? Because I wasn't able to.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Sentiment of the open house.
Well, I think we had positive input. Yeah, there were questions about the ERUs. There were questions about those types of things, but the sentiment and some of the emails I believe we sent to you, or it came in the communication, was we understand the need. We see it's there.
Yep.
And we just want to make sure that you're doing everything, investigating everything along the way before anything comes forward. And I believe we've done that. I mean, we've taken the comments, we've taken, we've had meetings with council on all of this. Now granted, we didn't get a huge turnout. But, and I would probably turn to Justin and Emily, but I think overall the sentiment was, yes, if we need it, then let's do it. Just make sure you're doing it right.
Would it be fair to say it was more of a either do it or don't, not do it here or there?
Yeah, yes.
I've talked to dozens of constituents, and I've got almost unanimous, maybe one or two, like one today, but of all agreed the need to have it.
Yeah.
It's always a question of, well, how much are you going to charge me? How are you going to charge it? Where's it going to be? Well, can you charge me just one time a year? And I said, you'll still be on your utility bill. Oh, well, that's great, because I pay that in it every month anyway. That's all right. It's not, So I don't think there's a question that we do it. I think the constituents see the need with what we've experienced over in your district. Is that where we had the issue? But that's not a question. I'm just saying it's the amount we want to do.
And I think that was the sentiment there at the meeting, that we presented the 750 in the budget and that.
But as Shane said, even if we adopt 750 tonight, it's strictly on the fee schedule, and we can amend that at any time, right? Or we can approve it tonight with the amended fee if we decide so now.
Yes, we would have to generate a new fee schedule exhibit and attach that. If you want to change it from the 750, which is what's attached.
But
right now.
again, if the other four of you want to maintain the 750, I will also vote in support to give unanimity. That's the word I'm looking for. Unanimity. But my point being to show a consensus, because
So Mayor, just one thing is, in 15 years, we've been a city for over 15 years, right? We've raised taxes one time. I hear people all saying, oh, these taxes are going crazy. Do most people generally know that what percentage our city takes out of their taxes? I think that needs to be made clear, because the
most people still
schools.
think the service area is under the city. Yes.
Right. And I think that it's amazing that the city is, I think, operating very efficiently to not go up with inflation like what we've had. You look at what it costs to, everything we have in our lives is going up.
Yeah.
And we are mandated to take care of our stormwater systems as well. So
Federal-
it's not,
federal legislation.
it's not just a luxury that we don't have to wash houses out, type thing. Because in my district, what we went through down there.
Okay.
It's something that's not a real pretty thing to put money towards, but you don't see it. But when it affects you in a big way.
I'm not going to fall on the sword on this, I promise. So you okay with 750?
I think so. If it's portable, like as Shane has mentioned, that you can.
Oh, it's a dedicated fee. That's the
No,
best
but
way
I
to do it.
mean portable, and you can move that fee and adjust it.
Sure.
Nobody
Well,
likes to pay more, but like you say, when you get what you get for the money that you pay, it's pretty impressive.
But make sure you look at the history of governments. How many times in the history of government you've ever seen anybody reduce a fee?
It never
reduce
goes
taxes?
away.
Right.
It never.
I recognize that as well. Even if Shane says that, it's not going to go away.
But we know we've got.
I'm an incurable optimist here.
We know we've got 2 years though of a fund that we may never see again, correct?
And it gives us an opportunity to do a lot of wonderful things.
Right.
I don't question that. The policy and the ordinance is excellent. Remember too, it has inflation built in. It will go up 3% every year, which is
Well, that goes into the budget discussion.
right at the same time. Yeah. So you're good with it? You okay with it? Yeah, you all right?
No, I mean, I agree with what Christine said. I was also looking for a way to, her arguments.
Well, it gives us a lot of flexibility. It does.
It makes sense.
No, you're right.
You know what you're saying.
Thank you, because I wasn't sure I was communicating it very
No,
well.
it's very clear, is we do not want to kick the
But
can
just
down the
remember
road, but we
that
don't want
Christine
to.
is also on records is looking at all these other needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, there's needs. You go anywhere and someone will talk to you about a need.
Yeah.
Anywhere,
Oh, it's-
anytime.
Oh, yeah.
And when Doug says it's not pretty, but you spend money on it anyways, I know I know exactly that's the way I feel.
Okay, any further discussion on stormwater fees? I mean, again, we've talked about the ordinance. We think it's excellent. It can always be tweaked later on, as you were saying. Okay, let's move to item C. We have a couple more minutes. And any further discussion on the budget? I have one additional item I want to bring up.
We have the, and Scott has included it in, the levy rate has
Yeah.
been placed in there, so that's one of the changes from the tentative budget.
And that's set by the county. We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1740.
So this comes in by the county. So our property taxes are budgeted at 8,153,450. This does include some delinquent collection estimates and so on and so forth that are above and beyond the actual property tax setting. The actual new growth is 90,313. And the new tax rate is 0.001740. The tax rate for actually last year, calendar year 2020, was 0.001898. So the property tax rate has reduced quite significantly. And that's due to quite a large growth in market value, basically, in the past year, which is obvious based on the current real estate market that is going on.
So may I at least reiterate, she went there. I looked over at Christine. Just to be very clear for anyone who's listening, the rate goes down because property values went up.
Yep.
So that the gross amount stays the same except for new buildings.
Yes.
A lot of people, there was a comment today, well, you guys are getting all this money because all of our values are going up. That does not happen in the state of Utah.
Right.
With property
When taken
taxes.
as a whole, that is accurate, because properties are valued on the system that the county uses irregularly. Sometimes you will get a little bit of a seesaw effect between different properties, but it's taken as a whole, that's an accurate statement.
And it hasn't always been that way. That's where Proposition 13 came from in California, because governments used to get huge windfalls of inflation, but that's no longer allowed.
We would have died in 2008.
Yeah, California still allows you to get a 2% per year inflationary increase. Here, we're not allowed anything, we get zero, so.
Okay, one item on the budget that I would throw out to the council. It's not a decision tonight, but something I think we will want to discuss further, and I shared it with Tim. And that is, one of the items is it's a capital item that is fairly large. It's the 1700 East Sidewalk. It's like, could be up to $400,000 or something. I would ask the council to consider in a future discussion the idea of possibly using the CDRA funds for that, for the Canyon Center, not Canyon Center, but one
Union Park.
Union Park one, to possibly fund that. But it would require us to go back to the taxing entities, but I think they would be supportive. I think that's a natural for that, along with the trail behind Target. Rather than take that from the general fund. But anyway, we'll vote tonight, it'll be in the budget, but it's something we can look at. You know, it's another funding source that would be good to get that done right and not take it from a fund that can be.
You feel like our odds are pretty good at being able to get that money?
I do.
Yeah,
Well, we have the money, it's ours already.
Right, but I mean, the actual allocation
Well, the
to
school
those
district-
projects, right?
That makes a nice.
Easy. Yeah.
School district would probably be favorable of that.
Because it's
The
walking around.
county,
I think the
it's a
county would-
process that we have to go through with
If
them.
we do it
which is-
before I leave, I think we can educate the county.
Yeah.
I'd love, that'd be wonderful.
But that would be, rather than take from general fund. That's just a side note. Any other comments on the budget? Again, I appreciated Scott's comparisons and
Those are amazing.
everything we've done, and it's a healthy budget, to be honest with you. It's a very healthy budget. The challenge going forward, again, is maintaining that benefits and compensation package at 600,000 a year. That's going to eat away the growth quickly. Yeah. Okay. But hopefully we continue to grow and do well.
Your original guesstimate for property tax growth was about 50, wasn't it?
It was 50, yeah, so this is 40,000 higher than what the original estimate was. We've been in the 50 to 100,000 range for new growth for the last several years, so that's pretty average for our new growth.
Okay, next item is item D. and Scott and Tim can speak to this more directly than I can, is that beginning of this year, it was decided to close down the splash pad at Mount View Park. We've had comments, I think, both ways. We've had people applaud us because of the drought situation. We've had others who have commented that, wait a minute, we have young kids who don't have the ability to have a membership or to pay to go to rec center. It's the only thing they have water-wise. So I asked Tim to put this on just for discussion, to make sure the council is comfortable with our position to keep it closed. So do you want to update us on some information you have?
Yeah, I'll just be very brief. So we based our decision, we met the CH2 committee with the Recreation District. We evaluated some of the things that Governor Cox talked about related to drought. And that's why we made the decision, and that's what we based it on. Mayor asked if we would talk with Salt Lake Public Water Utilities Group. We talked with the conservation specialist separately from the director, had two separate conversations. The conservation specialist said, right now we're in phase 2. There's not mandatory shutdown of this type of amenity. But as we move further into the summer, it's likely that we may move into phase 3 and phase 4, which would be a mandatory shutdown of these amenities. Right now, Salt Lake City has a similar splash pad to us in Liberty Park that the water does not recirculate. And they have limited to just certain days, actually 10 p.m. to 6 p.m. 10 p.m.
10
noon.
10 a.m.
Excuse me, 12 a.m., 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. There we go.
Noon to 6.
Noon, sorry.
It's an interesting neighborhood.
Noon. Sorry, I got my 10 and 12. mixed up.
Those kids all go to night school.
So noon to 6, they're opening up, I think 2 or 3 days a week during those hours. And that's based on that. They will look at shutting it down as we move into phase 3 or phase 4. So like the mayor said, we've had lots of comments of very positive that we are doing all that we can. Both the director and the other staff person said, anything you do now will help us to hopefully prevent getting into phase 3 and phase 4, but it's not mandatory right now. So we'd love your input. If you want to look at opening up on limited basis, we can do that.
Doug, it's your area. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've had quite a few discussions with individuals on this, because some people, obviously the heat makes it very attractive to be on all the time. I haven't found out the actual usage, and we did talk about the possibility of having this on certain days, but Mayor, we talked about it, and Tim, I think too, about worried about a flood of people all hitting it at the same time. So there's some of those issues. I did look into and researched about where they could recirculate it, but it was very, very expensive to do that. Looked at everything from the possibilities of using some of that water for the lawns and things like that. But there's a lot of moving issues on this, and I don't know what the water consumption is and what we could really, if we could open it at those limited times. I'm sure in the summer that it's through the week that when most of these kids would want to use it. I imagine the weekends would probably be higher. And so I don't know if those days are a possibility, or if we run into the situation where it will put us into that 3 or 4 quicker. Because I don't know what the water consumption use is, and maybe.
So it's 2.4 million during the regular summer.
Gallons
for the whole time. So that's what, four months roughly. So 2.4 million.
At the rec
So
center.
just
2.5
divide it
times.
by.
It's 2.5 times what the rec center pool uses.
No, what it would take to fill
What it would take to fill it.
it twice.
They fill it every year? or-
No. Just.
Just
Just
size,
That's a
size,
picture of
size.
how
Yeah,
much
volume.
water.
Yeah.
That's a volume, but also you get 1 or 2 inches of evaporation.
I mean,
a day
yeah.
out there too, but yeah. My thought was, and I don't feel strongly about this, is that for those who've been to that site, it's a very popular amenity for a lot of young kids and a lot of families, and a hot summer, and the consideration of opening it for 2 days a week from I don't know.
Midnight to 2.
From there
Sorry,
to
Tim.
noon. Now, the other thing you have to realize too, is this splash pad is not, it's not a fountain that's ongoing. You push a solenoid.
you have to
It's all-
activate
You
it.
have to
You
activate.
activate
it.
it.
It's only used if someone's.
Scott said we need to get those that actually make them work to do it, you know?
But anyway, I've had some constituents that asked if I would bring it up. I bring it up to council. It seems if we keep it closed through June, give them a couple days a week in July and August, and then, but I don't, I mean, that's just.
So an additional thought, I was initially thinking how fun to turn it on during food truck Mondays in August to draw more attraction. But then as I pondered that, the Delta variant is on its way and children under 12 are not immunized. So perhaps we want to discourage small children
That was part
gathering.
of the thing, is the group that uses it tends to be those that aren't.
That's the same thing.
But it's also mitigated by the
rec
fact that they're
center.
outside and the, you know, which. it's-
We have all those same kids in the outdoor pool at the rec center every day,
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
It's not quite here yet, but it is in other countries.
Yeah, it's, you know, people, I'm not personally as concerned about that because it's outside and they're already at the outdoor pool. This gives those who don't have the ability to pay for that area, Greenfield Village area, for those old people who know what it's at. It actually used to qualify for CDBG fund because of income status, but gives them an amenity that's designed. But
Well, I'm partial to food truck Mondays.
well, I mean, I read this weekend too, that some of the water districts are saying, look, if everybody would reduce 15%, we'd be in great shape. Well, if we reduced 5 days, we'd be reducing 60%.
Now, I know, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 90% of the water usage in Utah goes to agricultural. Is that right?
80.
Is it 80?
Really?
Yeah, it's really high, even though you think that a lot of our agricultural has disappeared. But I don't know where golf courses, where, you know, splash pads, all those things work into it.
They fit in the other 20.
What's that?
They fit in the other 20.
What's
I mean, they're
the,
not farms, and so.
Right, you have to produce, yeah.
what's the cost to fix it? I guess I don't see this conversation changing year to year. I mean, we're in a drought this year. We're gonna.
We're not gonna get more water other than
Yes.
rain.
So what's the capital cost to?
That's really a great question.
Yeah, years ago, it was close to $100,000 or $200,000, I think. That was
Well,
how many
depends,
years
you can
ago?
do it 2 or 3 ways. You can recirculate and chlorinate it,
Right.
then it's a whole maintenance issue.
Right.
Or you can reclaim it, and put it into a pump and use it in a system. Like some golf courses are literally watered from pumps, wells. Some are watered from
It was gray water, basically.
gray water,
Yeah.
and some, but some like up here, this golf course is actually culinary.
Oh, geez.
I know.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
I know,
Probably
I know.
fluoridation
There's no
too.
secondary
It's
water.
ridiculous.
I know, right.
That's the problem.
My suggestion that Doug kind of alluded to was, I like what they did at Newton Park. They have a water feature, the kids love it, but it's also manually, it's not pressurized. You don't push a button and you get to run and run and run. It's, you get to play with the toys and you get to pump the water out and you get to make it go
Yeah,
places. That has significantly less usage.
But it's
So
something, as far as going forward.
That's
uh,
capital.
a real permanent resolution would find a way to recover the water and use it somehow.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe this $4 million, 200 of that could be used for this, but
There's another need, huh?
I know, another
I
need, yeah.
mean, we've got needs everywhere.
I guess-
Can we use a
Yeah.
stormwater fee to do that?
I guess what I'm saying, I'm supportive of a 2-day concept and it can change, right?
Well,
Just like
absolutely. It
anything
can be
else that we're
taken
talking
away
about.
and then it.
But
Yeah.
I would like to see us have some kind of a public messaging about water consumption there. Like, hey, we
Newsletter,
can
everything.
add another day, but everybody in this community needs to save 15% of their water, whatever it is. Anything we can do to
We
spread.
get praised by about half the people for saving water and we get ridiculed by half.
No,
of them
if you look at
for
the
not
social
having it.
media
So-
on this subject,
Right.
it is dead on
Yeah.
50-50 and it goes like this.
But I
It's
think
like,
that's why,
great.
that's
You
why
guys
the
are idiots.
message is,
That's great. You guys
we
are
will
idiots.
reduce 60-70% of its use, but we will allow this small amount to keep it operating, keeping it maintained, allowing those people to plan the week to go there, whatever, a couple of days. And I'm more than willing to say, Scott with CH2, meet with the rec center, find out what they feel is the best time to do that. Is it weekends? Is it food truck Monday?
No, I like the idea of a Monday night kind of a thing, and especially if they're gonna be doing that. I
And you
think
can
that's a good
reduce the
time.
hours a little bit, maybe do Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, and just have them reduce their hours, because they can control it. But just an idea.
It would be nice to get that message out when we make a decision, because right now somebody said, hey, now we have a sign up, but for a while we didn't have anything and people were disappointed because it's kind of a destination park and it's.
It is, it's almost a regional amenity, but we have the newsletter coming out first week of July. First
I
of
think part of
July.
that signage would be if, we move on to the next
phase.
phase, closure will be mandatory, and that's
Yeah.
just, at least,
And I talked to Laura Briefer personally myself, separate from Tim earlier, and she felt, boy, if you just, she wasn't as even concerned about that as all the other green space, all the parks, all the other areas, and just say, if you'll just all be conserved more, will be, but she says it could change. But anyway.
So may I clarify? Not 10 to 6, though, we're not. So 2 days a week, we do
I'd
community
say 2 to 3 days a week, you guys figure that out with
with the recs.
Tim, and maybe it's less
Monday,
hours,
Thursday, Saturday, or something.
maybe it's less hours and one more day, or tomorrow, I mean, I don't.
So we'll coordinate
Just
with the rec center and work with them 2 to 3 days, looking at probably 12 to 6, noon to 6 as potential hours. We'll work with them on that. We get community messaging out on this. We get signage out talking about the phases. Is that?
And also talking about conserving, like let's
Yeah.
use.
Yeah, how about Lindsay? does a
Actually, maybe
campaign?
more like 12 days, because really, it's a little bit later the night you want it.
This is good, Mayor. Yellow is the new green for grass.
Tim, is that function to turn it
Someone's
off
looking
and
at my front
on?
yard.
Is it a function of turning it off and on manually to turn that on?
Both.
Yeah, I think
It's not a computer kind of a valve or
What's
anything.
that?
What's,
To turn on the water for the park, for the splash pad.
we have to turn the water onto the amenity, then once that water's on, then it's controlled by a sensor.
Yeah.
They have
The
to
kids,
push
oh,
it,
kids
it's
know where it
solenoid.
is.
No, the kids better not know where it is.
No, it's on, and it's,
Right.
and it's on for certain time, and then if someone pushes the switch, it's like the power's on, then we can hit the switch on and off.
But I
And the
mean,
power,
But
when
you gotta
rec
turn
center
that
says
off.
we're gonna turn it on 2 days or
Yeah.
3 days,
Right.
then
We
they
can
will
do-
handle
they can
that.
monitor. They can.
Okay.
I think the shortest amount of time to have it on is 90 seconds.
Maybe
Oh.
not at noon because of high heat,
Yeah, maybe.
quick
it's-
evaporation, maybe like 2 to 6.
Today, I think it's that 6 day when kids, when
Yeah.
parents just get off
Still
work
light
with
at
their
night.
kids.
No.
It's gonna be really
Nine's the best time to
cool.
go play. in it, yeah. So we put the shade structure down there to offset that.
I mean,
too.
that's nice, that's a nice.
So we
Let's
talking
talk
2 to 8 or 6 or,
And you guys look at it.
okay, we'll work with
Yeah.
the rec.
So right
Oh,
now
man,
it's
we'll-
100 degrees out.
Right now.
Right now,
So good.
tomorrow, yeah, looks
And
like
it's
it's peaking at about 5.
It's what?
Tomorrow it's peaking at 97 at 5. That's what you're saying. Oh, you have 102.
Yeah, last night at
I think you
6
guys are phone
o'clock.
battle.
Okay, that's what we
All
need.
right, let's move forward.
You're just so cool.
That's your house.
Yeah. This guy, you're so cool. Well, no, you know what?
We're done.
Review
Who's
calendar.
doing that in class?
It is
Oh,
waiting.
nice.
Can you write the motion on
Function.
that?
Yeah, okay, everyone, just real quickly, before we adjourn, just a reminder, Butlerville Days on July 19th through the 24th, and we get more information out to you what's coming.
I guess for clarity's sake, and again, response to a social media post, it's not because Butlerville Days is profitable and we're just trying to expand it. They're actually reducing a lot, but there are a lot of free activities, a lot of minor ones that are going on each night that week of scavenger hunts and things like that. And then they'll have hopefully some fun things on Friday and Saturday.
And the Historical
The 23rd.
Society will have their booth set up? or not?
Yeah, yes.
Because I've had a lot of compliments on
Food
it.
trucks will be there.
Yeah, they'll do that. They'll have the concert.
Yeah.
I
Entertainment.
expect we're gonna
Parade is
be able to
going
say
on.
yes on fireworks. I'm giving that.
The parade's going on, the fireworks.
You're best.
Chief Watson used to say it was okay because it is so controlled and there's so much.
It's
I mean, we
amazing what they
safe
do.
area and what to do outside, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. Motion to adjourn and reconvene in our.
Move that we adjourn our work session and reconvene our business meeting in 5 minutes.
All in favor, say aye.
Quick, that one. That was quick as.
If you hurry, there's enough time for a
I
break.
was sitting there.
What did they say? Look, was it that school the whole time? What did they say?
Yeah.
It is.
This lady's gonna go, this lady is
Fireworks are
going
up
to the
there.
bathroom.